From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilios. That is Sean Fazan. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that little bell notification button. You get updated every time we upload a new podcast. Sean Fazan, the preseason is over.
Thank God.
It is over. I wanted to get your thoughts, though, about this game against the Texans. What stood out to you in this preseason finale?
Well, it was interesting. I was at the preseason finale last night, as you guys saw on Fox 8. We did our Fox 8 Live tailgate, and we did our final play live from there. Before we get into that, be sure to like, share, rate, review. Be sure to catch us on the Fox 8 Overtime YouTube page and wherever you get your podcast. But I don't think it's any big secret what stood out, and it was the guy wearing number 80, Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
Vintage Jimmy, turn back the clock Jimmy, 2013 Jimmy. He looked like a man on a mission. Had 3 big catches, one to open the game, another big one down the seam, another touchdown, the one down the seam, and the touchdown were 2 vintage Jimmy Graham routes. One was a seam where he used his body to go up and get it. The other one was a box-out route right on the goal line where he was on the inside, then kind of ran kind of a, I guess you call it like a fade stop where he just kind of turned and really just used a 6'7" frame to box the defender out and make the catch. But, man, I got to tell you, he's so demonstrative after each play. And I know he's an emotional guy, but there was a little bit extra. It just made me think that, A, he was playing last night when every other tight end wasn't, except for a few. And every other veteran had the veteran night off, except for a few. That maybe he was more on the bubble than we had originally anticipated, and he needed a big exclamation point to this preseason, given all he's gone through, to show he deserves to be on this roster. Dennis Allen always says, with those veterans, you don't need to see it every day, but at some point you have to see it. DA, you saw it last night. You saw it last night. Jimmy Graham still got it, at least in small doses, and he was able, in my opinion, to become the star of the show, and you can't keep him off the 53 now. You just can't do it. You can't keep him off the 53 now. So Jimmy Graham stole the show. The other thing I really liked, and if you watch the Black and Gold review tonight, you'll see he didn't have big stats, but if you watch the first-round pick, Brian Brzee, he was very active last night and showcased this spin move that I know has been there, but it was the first time it was really on display and it was really effective. And I know he was going against, second and third team Houston Texans offensive linemen, but he wasn't afraid to use it, and it worked. And you just want to keep seeing a young guy like that develop, and maybe show you what he could possibly do when he gets into a regular season game. I think he's going to be a situational guy, pass rush guy. He's very quick off the snap. And that spin move, I mean, you can see the guards are just kind of left looking up, and no one's in front of him. He didn't have an actual sack, but he was close on a couple of them. But I certainly think that was a great thing as well. Jonte Kirkland had a good day. Not quite sure if the numbers are going to work out in his favor. And then, look, the kicker battle gets a little spicier. So we'll get into that as well. So Jimmy Graham steals the show. Brian Brzee. I like Jonte Kirkland, and we'll see what happens with the kicker. That's what jumped out most about the preseason finale Sunday night.
So you lightly touched on some of these positions here, and I know it hasn't been a long time since we last did your last roster projection here, but has there been any changes?
Just one, and I got to say this is somewhat rare that you go into the final preseason game with an idea of what the Saints have, and then you come out and it really stays the exact same except in one spot, and we'll get to it. We can start right now if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll go at quarterback. I'm sticking with it. Carr, Winston, Haener. I know there's been a little chatter about Jameis Winston possibly being on the bubble. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I thought he was pretty good last night. He started strong. He finished strong. And I think at the end of the day, right now, he's the one you would trust the most to be the backup quarterback. And as the roster has taken shape in other spots, I don't know if I got to have that roster spot if you're the Saints to save it somewhere else, which is kind of how it all played out this preseason. So I'm sticking with Carr, Winston, and Haener.
All right, how about running back?
Okay, this is where the change comes in. I had Kamara, Williams, Miller, Williams, and Prentice. Kamara being the asterisk because of the suspension. I'm taking Darrell Williams off, and I'm not putting anything on. I'm going to keep 2 backs and a fullback for the first 3 weeks of the season. It could change based off availability and injury, but I think you might be able to do the practice squad thing. You elevate a guy if you need it. Mm-hmm. Maybe you look around. I don't know. But I haven't seen much of Darrell Williams, and I didn't think Merriweather finished quite as strong, and I just don't know if he's going to get on the 53. I think he's a practice squad guy. I just don't know if he's going to get on the 53. So that's the biggest change. It's one less running back.
All right, wide receiver.
Wide receiver. So I took the running back off. I added another receiver. Olave, Thomas, Shaheed, A.T. Perry, Keith Kirkwood. I had to put the big fella back on. The big young kid, Shaq Davis. Size is just, I mean, he's impressive. 6'5", 220, whatever it is, has really come on over the last week of the season. I thought he was a practice squad guy. Had a big catch on third down to start the game yesterday. And I'm just hearing that they really like him. They don't want to expose him to waivers. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But I didn't have 6 on my original roster. I have 6 now with the wide receiver. That's really the only change. It's one less running back, one more wide receiver.
Tight ends?
Tight ends, the same. I like Lucas Kroll, but I think you saw, and he was very active last night. Jake Hanner was looking for him early and often.
7 catches for over 100 yards.
Over 100. He really had a good game. Just not quite there. Had Jimmy Graham fallen off and he shined, if he had that game without Jimmy's performance, maybe he's on. Maybe we're talking about that. But I think he's got another year on the practice squad. Taysom, Jimmy, Juwan, Foster Moreau, Kroll on the practice squad.
All right, offensive line, same as last time?
Yeah, it's the same. Look, no one is happy about the second-team offensive line. We stressed that last week. I think you saw when they got to the 2s and 3s last night. Yes, it's going to be an issue. The only player that I'm a little hesitant about now that could be a veteran casualty might be Andrus Peat. Didn't play particularly well. I think he's already lost that left guard spot. I think he's the second-team left guard. So Andrus Peat's future is the one that I'm curious about. And look, you have Throckmorton, Saldiveri, and Landon Young. I don't feel great about the second-team offensive line, but no one feels great about their second-team offensive line. So, right. And of course, you have your starting 5 of Ramczyk, Ruiz, McCoy, Hurst, and Penning. So, for better or worse, that's how the Saints are going to roll. That's how I see it, which could change by the time you listen to this podcast because it could be coming now within the next few hours, some roster moves.
All right. Staying in the trenches, defensive end.
Same. Jordan, Tano, Peyton Turner, Carl Granderson, Isaiah Foskey. I thought Foskey's had a nice finish over the last couple practices. Excuse me. To me, there's a clear line in that group who deserves to be on and who does not.
Defensive tackle.
D-tackle. Look, I like this group. Saunders, Shepard, Roach, and Brzee all have had their moments. And I just think it's really encouraging to see your first-round pick displaying and showing growth really from the first preseason game to the second preseason game, now to the third preseason game. So Saunders, Shepard, Roach, and Brzee, I think that's a group that's upgraded from a season ago.
All right, linebackers.
Excuse me. Same, keeping 6. Davis, Werner, Smith, who was active again last night. DeMarco Jackson, who, again, I just think he's kind of cooled off. Zach Bond and Nephi Sewell, who's one of those guys that's towards the back of the roster, but I think he's done enough to earn a spot.
All right, cornerback.
Same group. Lattimore, Alontae Taylor, who played last night and Adebo didn't. In a game where all the starters were rested, Taylor played, Adebo didn't. I think that tells you who won the competition. Roby, Yadam. So, 5 cornerbacks. I like that group as well.
And safety.
Again, Marcus May, the asterisk with the potential suspension coming. Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Howden, May, obviously, JT Gray, Ugo Amade, and I'm still going with Lonnie Johnson over Abram, over Smoke Monday. I think Lonnie Johnson gets a spot.
And special teams. Kicker.
All right, look, Groupie did his absolute best last night, had a chance to play the hero from 60, couldn't quite make it. I still have Lutz, Gillikin, Wood. If I were the Saints, I'm looking for a punter right now. I don't trust either one of them. I don't know what happened with Gillikin. Lutz is the incumbent, so I have him over Groupie unless you get a call and somebody's offering a 6 for Lutz. Would you do it and trust Groupie?
Yeah.
I might be okay with that. So Groupie is going to kick somewhere in the NFL. We'll see if it's with the Saints or someone else. Lutz will kick in the NFL. We'll see if it's with the Saints or someone else. But if it's a pure competition, who won? In my mind, it's Will Lutz.
And what about that punter position?
I got Gillikin. I mean, I'm not confident, as you can tell in my voice. I'm not confident in it. And that's probably the competition no one really talked about, and it's been really inconsistent with both guys.
Do you think they try to maybe solve this problem after cuts?
I would entertain that idea. I really would. I mean, you got a great defense, or at least you think you can have a great defense. You know, the punter plays into that with field position. And, you know, your organization now has got to focus on the finer details between winning and losing as opposed to massive foundational pieces, because the foundation, I believe, is in place. So stuff like, you know, net punting and average field position, starting field position for a defense, to me, that's exactly what I mean when I talk about smaller details that need to be kind of come into the equation of a team that feels like they can compete and win their division and get back into the playoffs.
All right, so final roster cuts coming Tuesday, August 29th.
Some teams are already doing it. The Saints played last night, so
the deadline, rather. The
deadline is Tuesday, but like I said, by the time you watch this or listen to this, they could have already started.
Sure.
So we'll update it as much as we can. But yeah, it's happening pretty quickly.
So, of course, we want to wrap up today's episode with a couple of questions from the Final Word feature on the Final Play app. Please keep sending in questions. We are loving all this right now. We got several on Black and Gold Review tonight, and then we got a couple right here on the Fox 8 Overtime podcast. This first one comes from Joshua and Gentili. From our practice squad this season, you think we might have a surprising good wide receiver or tight end who we don't know about and didn't see play in the preseason, like we had with Rashid Shaheed last season?
Well, I don't know if it's someone we didn't see. Shaheed was hurt last year, so we couldn't see him. This year, I don't think you have that luxury of the anonymous feel. But I think you're going to have a couple of good players on the practice squad at those positions. I just mentioned Jontre Kirkland, who I didn't have on my radar even for the practice squad before last night. He might have helped himself the most. I think he at least is in the discussion for a practice squad spot because he can return. And he can run after catch, middle of the field, get downfield. I just think it was a little too late, but I think it helped him in the practice squad realm. Tight end, I just mentioned him. I mean, it's Lucas Krull. I mean, that kid has potential if he could just get a little bit more consistent with his hands and his blocking, maybe get a little bigger. I think he'll eventually have a roster spot here with the Saints. And there's always that fear when you let a player go. Again, this is hypothetical. The cuts haven't come yet. That, can they pass through waivers and you get them back? That's always the fear that kind of, gives you a pit in your stomach. But if we're being honest, when you cut a player, for the most part, if they want those guys back, they're able to get them back. I can think of a couple of instances where I want to say last year they waived Ian Book and he got picked up by the Eagles. There were a few guys here and there, but for the most part, they're able to get the guys they want back.
All right, and this next question is from Carol. Who is calling offensive plays? Is it Coach Carmichael? Last week they had someone else calling plays, and he went for long passes, not throwing so many screen passes.
No, this week was Ronald Curry again. Last week was Ronald Curry as well.
Yeah.
This week, the only difference this week was it was Joe Woods calling the defensive plays, the defensive coordinator. I don't know how that's going to break up in the regular season because DA likes calling defensive plays. We'll see if that happens again once the regular season starts. I still believe Pete Carmichael's going to call offensive plays, but they did that last year with Ronald Curry, let him call plays in a few games, get him some experience. Didn't think it was all that bad. I mean, I thought it was pretty good. As far as the difference in what they called, I mean, you're dealing with backups, so it's not always going to look clean and crisp. So I think overall, though, it was a decent experience.
I agree. Any last thoughts before we head into the deadline for cuts?
Beware. We'll be updating it as quickly as possible. in terms of what I hear. So follow me on Twitter at Sean Fazan, Fox 8. There could be some moves coming. Pay attention to who gets waived in those spots. And sometimes the roster on cut down day is going to be one set of 53, but by Wednesday it's a different set of 53. And also remember this, there are some guys you have to keep on the opening day roster that you end up putting on IR a couple of days later, because if you put them on IR before the start of the regular season, they miss the entire season. But if you put them on IR after the start of the regular season, they can do the short-term thing. So there's always a little bit of numbers manipulation that has to happen in regards to the roster, because injuries play such a big role, and then spots at other positions play such a big role. So it's a puzzle, and it's a fluid puzzle. It's never set, but this is the best chance you get at seeing the majority of the Saints roster in 2023.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. For Sean Fazan, obviously, this has been the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, and review. We'll catch you guys next time.